Hi, so I decided to do this video for Set4 because it's a little different. And I posted these screenshots in the discussion board, but so I will just kind of show you what I'm working on. Wait. All right, so I'm in Photoshop. So we're going to talk a little about, I think 2.1 is pretty straightforward. Remember, you're having these lines, they're all in the same direction. And trying to think about patterning and texture and and read up on the patterning PDFs and the modules and the websites to really kind of get that going for you. Um, 2.3 is a little different. This is the first time we have well, I guess second time, we have a very strict size. So this is going to be 6 by 18 inches, 300 dpi. This could be vertical or horizontal, whatever preference you like. But this is the size limitations, no bigger, no smaller. So keep that in mind. And we're really going to think about how we can work with parts of a unit all together. So 2.3, let me pull up my textbook. Think about space, structure, form, and how do we order things. So it's divide and rearrange. So basically, using the same building blocks, how can you create something new with the exact same building blocks? So I made this little structure here. So this I played around with the brush tool in the back with the brush that I made from the brush demo. I added some shapes, which I use the raster tool for the shape tool. So I use that to draw shapes, and I rasterize it from there. So like I'm going to show you real quick. So I made the ellipse tool, and instead of keeping it as a live shape, I always find it best when I'm happy with it. I usually rasterize layers, so it's taken from a vector part into a pixel program, pixel image, and that makes it a little easier for me to work with. I try not to work with vector projects or anything vector within Photoshop. Just kind of have, I feel like they should be separate in my mind. You're more than welcome to keep that, but I just kind of rasterized it. And I got this cool little outline here, um, magnetic, but it's pretty simple. So I just did a selection tool, and this is kind of how I used to do things back in the day, 16, 17 years ago. So I'm on a new layer. You can right click and fill. Make sure you're filling with a foreground or background color. So you can do something like that. Or you can do a stroke, which is really nice. Remember, we have strokes here. And I can have a nice outline of something, which might be a good way. And that's kind of how I made that kind of shape there. So I'm going to delete that layer. And then these were text that I've rasterized. Um, as you can kind of see, I'm trying to keep things organized because with this setup, it can get a little confusing. I put my rulers on, and if you haven't noticed in my Photoshop or Illustrator, I always almost automatically put rulers on. It helps me organize everything. So that's just a Command R, or if you go to View Rulers. I also put guides in so I kind of have an idea of how my spacing is. And you can put guides in, but I just kind of click and drag. And as you can see, my ruler tells me about approximately where it needs to be. I like using rulers and guides because you never know how far or deep you may want to put something in. And so these are at 6 and 12, so they're kind of 6 by 6 square inches. And I put all of my stuff into a group. So I grouped my layers to keep organized because this can get very confusing quickly. And I organize things over here. So to group that, I just take a few layers, I select them all, and you can click on the little folder icon, it makes a group. To copy, kind of select all, and you can do a Command J, and it will just copy it. And you want to make sure everything is selected. And if you go to V for your move tool, you can just move it over. And it just copies everything for you and places it wherever you want it to be. And so, kind of, oh, there we go. And so the second group, kind of rearrange. What I found difficulty in both Photoshop and Illustrator with this was my larger shapes, I couldn't really organize them, so I still kind of kept it in the back. I'm kind of placing everything out. I would say personally, I would try to work with smaller parts in build up as opposed to have larger units so you have enough space. It's kind of a small space to put everything in. And you see, I kind of went overboard, which is fine. It's not a huge deal. But to get these straight lines was really fun. So I'm going to work in this window here and kind of get my stroke outline. And if I was smart, I would have named my layers. That's that one. This is kind of a fun thing. This is layer via cut. So I'm going to select on layer 3. And I'm just using the polygonal lasso tool and just making selections on where I want it to be cut out. So if I had scissors, I would literally cut this out. So if you go to layer, new via copy, so cut and copy. So layer via copy, we'll just copy that segment and place it right there. Because I'm destructive, which I shouldn't be, I did layer new via cut. So it literally cuts it out. And that way I kind of put them in different parts and I can rearrange. Obviously, I want to zoom in a little more to see that. Jump over to Illustrator is kind of where I was working. What I like about this for Illustrator is I tend to throw things outside my artboard. When I work on Illustrator, I get a little messy, but I just kind of selected and I made a background. I make sure to lock your backgrounds, especially when you're doing something like this because it's going to want to move it. But if you go to your layers, okay, you can see I locked it and then I just made a new layer to work off of. That way I don't accidentally move it. But you can select all and I just click and drag a box around something. And if you do Alt or Option, it'll just copy things out, which makes things easy. I have things I made with the brush, the blob brush tool, but this might be something you want to do for that. And think about, and we really, the point of this one is the same building blocks can be rearranged to make something completely new, and that's kind of what you're attempting. So let it be something. My last frame is not very interesting or new, but let it be something fresh and new. Maybe you work on the first part, wait a bit, and then you come back to this part. Might be a fun thing. So I'm going to hop back to Photoshop for 1.6. Remember, you can use images off the internet. And this is where you're working with a modular unit, so cohesion towards visual units. So I create one thing. So I could have made something in Photoshop or Illustrator, but I had limes on the brain. And my palette typically is pink, and I actually probably should have grouped these or named them or something. But I just made a selection from an image that I found on Creative Commons, this lime, and I just kind of copied the layer. You can do a Command J, that's a keyboard shortcut for copy. or you can do hold down Alt or Option, click and drag. Remember, you can use your free transform tool to kind of whip it around. I don't want to make it bigger because it stretches those pixels out. So you can see at 100%, that's not looking so good. That's looking a lot better. But you can rearrange. And I'm holding down Shift as I'm doing so to kind of make my copy. And I want this, and again, a lot of you guys suffer from the, like, I want to make something that looks like a thing. Let it be abstract, let it be fun. Think about how you can build. One of my students, my face-to-face class mentioned Lego blocks, and I thought that was a great process. Think these Lego blocks because they're all pretty much the same. Try to keep them. These are all going to be the same color, but if they're building something like that, and I think that might be a good way to frame it. Next week we're getting into composition. So try to use your gestalt theory and think about how we can really engage the viewer. You want to keep the eye moving. You don't want to put something straight in the center. And we'll talk why that is not the best choice. And why sometimes that is the best choice, but try to avoid that. Try to keep some visual texture going on. And I think this will be a very fun unit. And enjoy.